All right, so we're diving into COP29,
Uh-huh.
the UN climate change conference happening right now.
Yes,
It's in Baku, Azerbaijan,
that's right,
and
as you probably know.
nearly 200 countries. They
Right.
gather every year
Mm-hmm.
to try and figure out this whole climate change thing,
Yeah.
to try and wrangle some solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this year's different.
This year's got a lot of people talking.
There's a reason for all the buzz.
It's got all the makings of a geopolitical thriller.
Oh,
Yeah.
like what?
We've got an unexpected host country
Heck, what?
with a vested interest in fossil fuels,
Uh-huh.
a new global climate finance goal
Okay.
with trillions of dollars,
Wow.
and even a tiny island nation
Oh, really?
staging a dramatic boycott.
Okay, so let's break this down a little. Let's
Yeah.
start with Azerbaijan as the host.
Okay.
How did an oil-rich nation
Yeah.
end up leading the charge
Nice.
on climate action?
Well, the path to Azerbaijan hosting COP29, it was a winding one,
Okay.
fraught with geopolitical tensions and a last-minute withdrawal
Really?
that shifted the landscape entirely.
So it's a bit of a story,
It really is.
but it does make you wonder.
Yeah.
Because Azerbaijan's economy
It
is so deeply tied to fossil fuels.
Very much so, yeah.
I mean, over 50% of their GDP
That's right.
and something like 92.
92.5% to be exact
Wow.
of their export revenue in 2022.
Came from oil and gas?
Yeah.
That's a lot of
I-
reliance
I-
on
yeah.
the very thing COP is trying to transition away from.
It is a bit ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why climate activists and human rights groups are
Yeah.
raising eyebrows.
It's like inviting a chocolate factory owner
There you
to
go.
lead a health food conference.
That's a good analogy.
Right.
Yeah.
It really brings to light the tension
Yeah.
between economic interests
Right.
and the urgency of climate action.
Absolutely.
And speaking of economic interests,
Yeah.
this COP.
It's being hailed as the finance COP
Oh,
because
wow.
trillions of dollars are potentially on the table.
Okay.
This is all about the NCQG.
The NCQG.
The new global climate finance goal
Yeah.
currently being negotiated.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Didn't developed nations already pledge
they did.
$100 billion a year
That's right.
back in 2009
Back in 2009.
to help developing nations fight climate change?
To help them combat climate change, yeah.
What happened to that?
Well, that's the infamous $100 billion pledge, a
Absolutely.
step in the right direction, but a full amount was never actually delivered.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's very clear now
Yeah.
that a far more ambitious target is
Hey,
desperately needed.
So this NCQG,
Aims to address this.
Okay.
But of course,
Yeah.
there are questions.
such as
Who
Oh.
pays? How
Yeah.
much? And in what form?
right.
This is causing a lot of friction.
Oh, I bet. Between developed and developing countries.
It's a high-stakes poker game
It is.
with the future of the planet hanging in the balance.
Literally.
Speaking of high stakes,
Yes.
we can't forget about the agreement from COP28,
Oh, you mean?
the commitment to transition away from fossil fuels,
Yes, that
Yeah.
landmark agreement.
a potential game changer.
Absolutely. A historic moment.
For sure.
But achieving a global fossil fuel phase-out,
Yeah.
it's a monumental task.
I can imagine.
Especially for nations like Azerbaijan,
Right.
whose economies are so reliant
Yeah.
on those resources.
It's like asking someone to quit their high-paying job
Right.
with no backup plan.
Exactly.
And then Azerbaijan also just downgraded. They
Yeah.
did their climate targets
Yeah.
recently.
Which doesn't exactly inspire confidence.
No, not really.
It just shows the complexities
Yeah.
of balancing economic interests
Mm-hmm.
with climate action.
For sure.
So that brings us to loss and damage.
Okay.
This idea has been gaining traction.
Yeah.
Basically a fund
Yeah.
to compensate vulnerable countries that are hit hardest
The ones bearing the brunt.
by climate impacts.
Exactly.
What do we know about this?
Well, the Loss and Damage Fund,
Yeah.
it really is a powerful acknowledgement
Okay.
that climate change is already causing harm
Yeah.
and that those least responsible are facing the worst consequences.
Right. Makes sense.
At COP28, we saw a breakthrough
Oh, really?
with the agreement to operationalize the fund
Okay.
and initial pledges
Uh-huh.
exceeding $720 million.
That's a good start.
It is.
That's it.
The needs are huge,
Yeah.
just for context.
Yeah.
Hurricanes Helen and Milton,
Mm-hmm.
they caused an estimated $55 billion in damages.
It's just in the U.S.?
Just in the U.S. recently.
Wow, $55 billion.
Yeah.
That's just 2 hurricanes.
Exactly.
Imagine the cumulative cost for vulnerable nations.
The ones dealing with
Yeah.
rising sea levels, droughts, extreme weather events.
Exactly.
It's a lot.
For sure.
Speaking of vulnerable nations,
Yes.
there's this interesting story unfolding
Okay.
with Papua New Guinea.
Papua New Guinea, yeah.
They're actually boycotting COP29.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
They're just not going.
No.
What's the reason?
Well, Papua New Guinea,
Yeah.
it's an island nation
Right.
facing a very real threat
Yeah.
of being swallowed up
By rising sea
by
level.
rising sea levels, yeah.
So they're very much on the front lines
They are.
of climate change.
They are.
And it sounds like they're just deeply frustrated
They are.
with the lack of progress and support.
Yeah, they feel like the world's talking the talk, but not walking the walk.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
Makes you wonder.
Makes you wonder if this boycott will be a catalyst for change or a sign of growing disillusionment if the financial needs of vulnerable countries aren't met. Could this be just the first domino to fall,
Wow.
triggering a wave of boycotts?
That's a good question.
And to add to all of this,
What?
countries are expected to submit updated
Oh, right.
national climate plans.
They're NDCs.
For NDCs. Yeah,
By February 2025.
that's right.
So the stakes are even higher
They are, yeah.
because these plans...
They're basically roadmaps
Right, yeah.
for how each nation plans to reduce emissions
Okay.
and adapt to climate change.
So the big question is,
Yeah.
will countries, including Azerbaijan,
Yeah.
step up?
Will they deliver bolder and more ambitious NDCs?
We'll see.
The world is definitely watching.
Okay, so before we jump into what the listener sent us,
Yeah.
I'm curious about the overall vibe
The mood on the ground.
at COP29.
What I'm hearing is there's a palpable sense of urgency
Okay.
in Baku.
Interesting.
There seems to be this recognition that the time for talk is over
Right.
and concrete action is paramount.
So less talk,
Yes,
more action,
precisely.
whether this actually translates into meaningful commitments.
That remains to be seen.
We'll see.
But the shift in tone
Yeah.
is encouraging.
Okay, let's see what the listener has gathered
Sound
of
good.
this deep dive.
Okay.
First up, we've got excerpts
Okay.
from the official UN Climate Change Conference website.
Ah, good place to start.
This should
I'll
give
the
us...
lay of the land.
Exactly,
Cool.
official word.
All right, let's see. Lots of information here.
Yeah.
Registration, agenda,
Mm.
schedules.
Right.
Even public webcasts.
Oh, that's cool.
So even though we're not physically in Baku,
Right.
we can still follow along
We can.
with the key events.
Nice.
There's also a section on the green zone,
Ah, yes, the green zone.
which you mentioned earlier.
I did.
It's cool that they have that.
It's a great addition.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic space
Okay.
where the public and civil society...
Can engage with climate issues through exhibitions,
Okay.
cultural performances, and a whole program of events.
So it's not just for the officials.
No, not at all.
It's for everyone.
It really emphasizes accessibility,
That's great.
making sure that everyone can participate,
That's fantastic.
regardless of their abilities.
And they've got info on transportation, interpretation services, even medical services.
Yeah, they've really thought of everything.
So the UN website is covered.
Okay, what's next?
Let's see. An article from the Environmental Information Center.
Oh, interesting.
They're doing a deep dive into the key issues at COP29.
A deep dive. I like it.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're highlighting some of the controversies around Azerbaijan
Right.
as the host nation.
Of course.
They're also emphasizing the financial aspects.
Okay.
They're calling it the Finance COP
Makes sense.
and giving some helpful background on COP28, particularly that agreement to phase out fossil fuels.
Right. That landmark agreement.
It's interesting to see them connect that back
Yeah.
to Azerbaijan's dependence on fossil fuels
Right.
and their climate targets.
Which are, as we discussed,
Yeah.
not very inspiring.
All right, they kind of downgraded them.
They did.
Yeah.
It highlights the complexity of this transition.
Yeah.
Moving away from fossil fuels is not easy.
No, especially when your economy depends on them.
Exactly.
They're also digging into the Loss and Damage Fund,
Okay.
explaining its origins and the challenges of raising enough money
Right.
to meet the needs of vulnerable countries.
That's a crucial issue.
Yeah.
Any insights into how they plan to address that
Yeah.
are welcome.
Okay, so we've got the UN website
Yes.
and an analysis from the Environmental Information Center.
Okay.
What's next?
Let's see.
We have an article from the United Daily News.
Oh, a major news outlet.
So it'll be interesting to see their take on COP29.
Diverse perspectives are always helpful.
All right, let's see what they've got.
Okay.
They're focusing on the somewhat subdued opening.
Subdued?
Yeah, of COP29.
Interesting.
It seems like a lot of world leaders
Really?
are skipping the event.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah?
Any indication as to why?
Well, they mentioned that President Biden
Uh-huh.
is skipping his second COP in a row
Wow.
because of the presidential election.
Right. Campaigning probably takes priority
Yeah?
over climate summits right now.
Makes sense.
Are other leaders absent as well?
Yeah, they say that French President Macron
Uh-huh.
and German Chancellor Scholz
Okay.
are also missing.
So a few big names missing.
Yeah, it seems like COP29 might be lacking
Yeah.
some of its usual star power.
Perhaps.
But the article does emphasize that despite this absence,
Okay.
the issue of climate finance
Right.
is still front and center.
Good.
They mentioned that the goal
Uh-huh.
is to set a new climate finance target, potentially starting at $1 trillion per year.
$1 trillion a year.
Yeah.
That's a staggering figure.
It really underscores the scale
It does.
of the challenge we're facing.
It certainly does.
What else have we got?
Let's see.
We have an article
Okay.
from the Economic Daily News.
The Economic Daily News.
This one highlights a warning from the UN
A warning.
about the impact of the climate crisis
Oh, hey.
on refugees.
Ah, that's a critical issue.
Yeah, it often gets overshadowed
It does.
in these discussions.
Let's see what they have to say.
They're saying that rising temperatures
Mhm.
and extreme weather events
Right.
are already displacing people
They are.
and exacerbating existing humanitarian crises.
Of course.
The UN Refugee Agency is stressing that
What?
many of the countries with the highest numbers of displaced people
Okay.
are also the ones most vulnerable
Right.
to climate change.
It's a double whammy.
Yeah, for those already struggling.
It is.
So it's a stark reminder
It is.
that climate change isn't just an environmental issue.
Right.
It's a humanitarian crisis
Yes.
with far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely.
And they're also calling for more resources
Of course.
to address the growing needs
Yeah.
of climate refugees.
Makes sense.
It's a reminder of the human cost of climate change
Yeah.
and the need for a coordinated global response.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's next?
Let's see. We have an article from Radio France Internationale,
Okay.
an international news outlet.
All right.
It looks like they're diving into the surprising number of world leaders.
Wait, even more
Yeah.
who are absent or boycotting COP29.
That's right.
We already mentioned Biden
Mm-hmm.
and Macron.
Yeah.
Who else?
Well, it seems like
Yeah.
the leaders of Russia,
Oh, wow.
China,
Okay.
India,
Wow.
and Brazil.
That's a pretty big list.
It is.
Any particular reasons?
They don't give specific reasons,
okay.
but they point out that
Yeah.
this is a departure from recent years,
Okay.
where heads of state at these summits
Right.
had become almost routine.
So it seems like COP29 isn't generating the same level of high-level political engagement.
Not this year.
Interesting.
But there's another angle.
Ooh.
They also highlight boycotts.
Right. We talked about Papua New Guinea. Are there others?
Yeah, a group of French politicians,
Okay.
including the mayor of Paris, are calling for a boycott
Of COP29.
of the summit. Yeah.
And why?
They're protesting Azerbaijan's human rights record, arguing that it's a shame to hold such an important event
Yeah.
in a country with an authoritarian regime.
That's a pretty strong statement.
It is.
It reflects the growing scrutiny
Yes.
around the selection of host countries
For sure.
for these climate talks.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got lots of different voices weighing in on COP29.
From the UN to activists to politicians.
And it's clear there are lots of different perspectives
Many different perspectives.
on the key issues.
Absolutely.
One more source before we wrap up this part.
Okay, what is it?
It's another article from Radio France Internationale.
All right.
And this one focuses on Papua New Guinea's boycott.
Right, we touched on that earlier.
Yeah, but let's delve a little deeper
Sounds good.
into their reasoning.
Okay.
They're protesting what they see as a lack of
Okay.
rapid support
Mm-hmm.
for victims of climate change.
Right.
It's a powerful statement
It is.
coming from a country
A country that's,
literally on the front lines,
yes,
facing rising sea levels.
firsthand.
They're basically saying
Yeah.
that the world's actions
Mhm.
aren't matching the urgency of the
No way.
situation.
especially for those bearing the brunt of the crisis.
It makes you wonder, are we just talking about climate action? Or are we actually taking the steps to protect the most vulnerable?
It's a question worth asking.
And Papua New Guinea's foreign minister, he didn't mince words.
What did he say?
He called the climate talks a complete waste of time.
Wow.
That's harsh.
It is.
But you can feel their frustration. It really shows the disconnect.
The disconnect between the rhetoric and the reality for those facing the consequences.
Okay, one more detail from this article.
Okay.
Apparently, the Taliban government in Afghanistan.
The Taliban.
Has been invited
to COP29.
To COP29. Seriously.
Seriously.
But they're not even recognized by the UN.
I know, right?
What kind of status would they even have?
I have no idea.
Well, sources suggest they might be granted observer status.
Observer status.
But it's still unclear.
Wow, that's just
adding another layer.
Adding another layer of complexity to an already intricate situation.
It really reflects the evolving geopolitical landscape surrounding these climate talks.
So we've covered a lot.
We have.
Azerbaijan's controversial horsting role.
Papua New Guinea's boycott.
Right.
The Taliban's potential presence.
Yes.
At COP29.
We've also explored the issues of climate finance, phasing out fossil fuels, and loss and damage.
It's a lot to digest. But it's important to understand all of this.
These aren't just abstract global issues. They have real-world consequences for people's lives.
With their livelihoods?
And their futures.
Exactly.
We have one last source to discuss.
Okay, bring on.
It's another article from the Environmental Information Center website.
Great.
Looks like they're diving into the preparations for COP29.
Okay.
And the key issues likely to dominate the discussions.
Okay, let's see.
All right.
They're highlighting the importance of the global stocktake.
Yes. The stock.
Which was conducted at COP28.
Right.
Can you remind us what that is again?
Sure, the stocktake.
Yeah.
It's basically a comprehensive review of how much progress countries have made toward their climate commitment.
So they're checking in.
Exactly.
To see if everyone's doing what they said they'd do.
Precisely.
And how did that go?
Well, unfortunately, the stocktake revealed that the world is not on track.
Not surprising.
Not really, no.
But still disappointing.
It is a reminder of the urgency.
Of the situation.
Yeah.
But the article does say.
It does say.
That the stocktake did help to create a sense of urgency at COP28.
It did.
Which ultimately led to that agreement.
The agreement to transition away.
To transition away from fossil fuels.
From fossil fuels, yeah.
So sometimes you need a reality check to spur action.
A cold, hard look.
So for COP29, what are the key issues?
Well, they emphasize the need to operationalize the loss and damage fund.
Okay.
Its creation at COP28 was a breakthrough.
Yeah.
But now they need to figure out how it's going to work in practice.
Right, the logistics.
Exactly.
It's one thing to agree on a fund.
It is.
It's another to figure out who's eligible, how claims are assessed, how the money is distributed.
Lots of details to work out.
Lots of devils in the details.
Indeed.
The article also mentions NDCs.
Yes, the National Climate Plans.
Which are due in February 2025.
That's right. There's a lot of pressure.
I bet.
For these plans to be ambitious, to align with the goal of limiting global warming.
To 1.5 degrees Celsius.
Exactly.
Because COP29 is a big moment.
It is.
For countries to show their commitment to climate action.
To see if they'll step up.
We've covered so much today.
We have.
The controversies, the issues, the different perspectives.
It's been a whirlwind tour.
It has.
Of climate diplomacy.
And these aren't just abstract global issues.
No, they're not.
They have real-world consequences.
They do.
For people.
For everyone.
So before we wrap up this part, I want to ask you, our listener.
Okay.
Imagine you're a delegate at COP29.
Okay.
Sitting at the table with the fate of the planet in your hands.
Wow.
What would be your top priority?
It certainly does feel like the world is watching.
Yeah.
Waiting to see if COP29 will be a turning point or another missed opportunity.
Or another one bites the dust.
And speaking of missed opportunities, that brings us back to Papua New Guinea's boycott. Boycotts have this long and complex history in international relations. Have they actually ever influenced these global summits?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your take on that.
Well, boycotts are essentially a way for nations to signal their discontent, to exert pressure on the international community.
So it's a way to say,
yeah,
we're not happy.
We're not happy
with how things are going.
Exactly.
So do they work?
Well, they can be effective at raising awareness,
Uh-huh.
drawing attention to specific issues,
Okay.
but their ability to directly influence outcomes,
Right.
that's debatable.
I can see that.
It depends the context, the level of support, and the goals of the boycotting parties.
So it's not a simple yes or no.
No, not at all.
But in this case,
Yeah,
Papua New Guinea's boycott,
it's
gotten attention.
it has captured the world's attention.
It's a powerful statement.
It is.
Coming from a nation that's on the front line.
A nation facing the consequences of
Sure.
climate change.
And they're not alone.
No, they're not.
We talked about those French politicians
Yes.
calling for a boycott as well.
The mayor of Paris among them.
It's interesting how human rights concerns are becoming intertwined with the climate agenda.
It's all connected.
It seems like choosing host countries for these summits.
It's under increasing scrutiny. There's a growing awareness that you can't have meaningful progress on climate without addressing human rights
and social justice.
Exactly.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
there was one detail from that article about Papua New Guinea
Yes.
that really stuck with me.
What was that?
The part about the Taliban
Yes.
potentially going to COP29.
The Taliban attending a UN climate summit
It's surreal,
is unexpected.
especially since their government isn't even recognized.
Not officially recognized by the UN, no.
It just shows how complex
It does.
this whole geopolitical landscape.
The landscape around climate change is complex.
It's a delicate balancing act,
It is.
trying to bring together all these different nations.
Many different priorities and agendas.
It's like herding cats,
That's a great analogy.
but the cats are countries.
Exactly.
Oh, let's look at something else.
That sounds good.
What's next?
We have an article here from the Environmental Information Center website focusing on the preparations for COP29
Okay.
and the key issues that are likely to dominate.
It's always good to get a sneak peek.
Behind the curtain.
Exactly, so to speak.
So what are they saying?
Well, they mentioned the global stocktake
Oh, right.
from COP28.
COP28, yeah.
Can you remind us what that is again?
Refresh my memory.
Sure. The global stocktake is essentially a comprehensive assessment of how countries are doing in terms of their climate commitments.
So they're checking in.
Under the Paris Agreement.
Right, the Paris Agreement to see if everyone's on track.
Exactly. Well, as we discussed earlier,
Yeah.
the stocktake at COP28 showed that the world is not on track.
Not really a surprise,
Not really, no.
but still
Yeah.
disappointing.
It is.
So are they saying anything positive?
They do point out
Okay.
that the stocktake
Did manage to galvanize a sense of urgency at COP28, which ultimately led to that historic agreement.
the agreement to transition away from fossil fuels.
Transition away from fossil fuels, yes.
So it
but
wasn't all bad.
not all doom and gloom.
Silver linings and all that.
Exactly.
What else are they saying?
For COP29,
Yeah, for COP29 going forward.
they highlight two crucial areas.
Okay, hit me.
First,
Uh-huh.
they say we need to flesh out the operational details
Yeah.
of the loss and damage fund.
Of course, it's one thing to agree on a fund,
It is
to actually make it work.
to figure out the logistics.
Yes.
Lots of questions.
So many questions.
Who's eligible? How are claims assessed?
Right.
How's the money distributed?
Lots of devils in the detail.
Lots of devils, for sure.
The second area
Yeah.
is the need for increased ambition
Okay.
in the national climate plans,
The NDCs,
the NDCs,
which are due
in February 2025. February 2025, right?
There's a lot of pressure
I can imagine.
for these plans to be aligned
Right.
with that 1.5 degrees Celsius goal.
So COP29 is a test
It is.
to see if countries are serious,
To see if they're willing to commit
to making the changes.
the changes that are needed.
Okay, so we've covered a lot.
We have.
Controversies, key issues, different perspectives.
A lot of information.
It's been a fascinating look
It has been a journey
at climate diplomacy.
navigating the complexities.
And it's clear
It is
that this is a critical moment.
a critical moment for our planet.
The choices we make now
They will have consequences.
for generations to come.
For sure.
So let's encourage our listener.
Yes.
To stay engaged.
To stay informed.
Follow the news from COP29.
And think about how they can contribute
to a more sustainable future.
Absolutely.
We'll be back soon with Part 3.
Part 3.
To explore some solutions.
Yeah.
And wrap up our conversation.
About COP29.
And the future of climate action.
Looking forward to it.
In the meantime,
yeah,
let's keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
You know, it's easy to get bogged down in all the complexities of the climate crisis.
The sheer scale of it all.
But I think it's important to remember that there's also hope.
There is.
And there's a lot of innovation happening.
Yeah. Human ingenuity is incredible.
For sure.
People are coming up with solutions all over the world.
To mitigate climate change.
And to adapt to its impacts.
So let's talk about some of those solutions.
Okay, what do we got?
Well, there's this article from a technology journal highlighting the advancements.
In what area?
In renewable energy technologies.
Renewable energy.
It seems like every day.
I know, right?
There's a new breakthrough.
It's an exciting time.
And solar, wind, geothermal.
You name it.
The cost of these technologies has plummeted.
It has.
In recent years.
Which is great.
Making them more competitive.
With fossil fuels.
With fossil fuels.
Exactly.
And we're also seeing progress in energy storage.
Energy storage is crucial.
Right.
Because
the sun doesn't always shine.
And the wind doesn't always blow.
So we need ways to store that energy.
Efficient and affordable ways.
Yeah.
That's essential.
For a smooth transition.
For sure.
Away from those fossil fuels.
And then there's carbon capture and storage.
Carbon capture?
Or CCS.
What's that?
It has the potential to actually remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
Okay.
And store it underground.
So just suck it out of the air.
Essentially, yeah.
And bury it.
It's still early stages.
Okay.
But it's showing promise for mitigating emissions. Hard to decarbonize sectors.
Like what?
Heavy industry, for example.
Okay, so we've got renewables. We've got carbon capture.
Yeah.
What about transportation?
Transportation.
That's a big one. What are we seeing there?
Well, the shift to electric vehicles.
Electric vehicles, yeah.
Or EVs.
Okay.
It's really gaining momentum.
For sure.
Major automakers are investing heavily.
Okay.
And governments are incentivizing their adoption.
With policies and things.
Exactly.
It's not just cars, though.
No, not at all.
Right.
We're seeing electric buses.
Okay.
Trucks.
Wow.
Even planes.
Electric planes starting to emerge.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So transportation is electrifying.
It is. And as battery technology improves and costs come down, we can expect to see more and more EVs.
Okay, so we've got the technology.
We do.
But technology alone, it's not a silver bullet.
It's not.
Right.
No, we also need systemic change.
We need to change the system.
Exactly.
So what does that look like?
Well, it involves rethinking our relationship with the planet.
Our relationship with the planet.
Yeah, and shifting away from our current economic model. Endless growth. And consumption.
But it's not just about swapping out fossil fuels.
It's about changing.
That's how we think about growth.
Yeah, about how we consume.
Exactly.
So what's the alternative?
Well, the concept of a circular economy.
A circular economy.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's about using and reusing resources.
Okay.
Rather than just discarding them.
So it's a loop.
It's a loop.
Instead of a line.
Exactly. Moving away from that take-make-waste model and embracing a more regenerative approach.
Regenerative, okay.
That values resource efficiency, waste reduction, and closed-loop systems.
So
it's about designing things to be reused.
To be part of that loop.
Exactly.
And this requires a collective effort.
It does.
Right.
Governments, businesses, individuals.
We all have a role to play.
We do.
Okay, so we've talked about technology. We've talked about changing the system.
Systemic change.
What about us?
What about individual action?
What can we do?
As individuals.
To make a difference?
That's the question, isn't it?
It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
It is. The scale of this is huge.
Yeah. But you always say.
I do say.
That every little bit helps.
Every little bit counts.
Right. It's like a giant tapestry.
Okay, I like it.
Each individual action is a thread.
A thread in the tapestry.
And together, those threads create something beautiful.
A beautiful design.
So what threads can we contribute?
What can individuals do?
Well, we can reduce our carbon footprint.
Reducing our carbon footprint, good place to start.
Drive less.
Okay.
Fly less. Choose energy-efficient appliances.
Good.
Be more mindful of our energy use.
At home, at work.
Exactly.
What we eat also matters.
Oh, yeah, our diet.
Choosing more plant-based foods.
Okay.
Reducing food waste.
Right.
Supporting local and sustainable agriculture.
All good things.
And don't underestimate the power of your wallet.
What do you mean?
Every purchase you make
Yeah.
is a vote for the kind of world you want.
So choose products
With a lower environmental impact.
support businesses
That are committed to sustainability.
and invest in companies.
That are ethical and sustainable.
Right. Put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
And we can also use our voices.
Yes. Talk about climate change
With
your friends, your family.
Okay.
Contact your elected officials. Advocate for change.
Right. Make them listen.
And support organizations.
That are working on this.
Yeah, working to address the crisis.
That's all about collective action.
It is, and that starts with individual voices.
And it's important to remember
What?
that change takes time.
It does.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
There will be setbacks,
There will.
but we can't give up.
We can't lose hope.
We have to stay informed.
Stay engaged.
And keep pushing.
Keep pushing for a better future.
Okay, so as we wrap up this
Yeah.
deep dive
Into COP29.
and the future of climate action,
What are your final thoughts?
what's the takeaway?
I think the main thing is, while this is a huge challenge,
It is.
it's not insurmountable.
You can do this.
We can have the knowledge.
We have the tools.
And we have the will.
the collective will.
But it's going to take a shift.
a fundamental shift
In our thinking.
in our priority.
And in our way of life.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected.
We are.
That our actions have consequences.
They do.
And that we have a responsibility
To care for this planet.
to care for each other.
Absolutely.
And to care for this
And
planet.
our shared home.
It's about embracing hope
Optimism
and believing.
that together
Yeah,
we can make a difference.
well said.
Thank you for joining us
On this deep dive
to COP29.
and the future of climate action.
It's been a pleasure.
And to you, our listener, we
Yeah.
hope this deep dive
Has given you some insights
sparks your curiosity
and inspired you
to join the movement.
for a better world,
A more sustainable world.
a more just world.
Remember,
Yeah.
the future is not something that just happens to us.
We have a say.
We create it together.
So until next time,
Until next time,
keep exploring
keep learning.
and keep making a difference.
See you next time.